All right, TikTok's loading up. Let's see. Settings. VPN. All right, that should be better. All right, so with this tattoo video going up on TikTok, nearing 2 million views, the comments are still flooding in. It's been a couple of weeks now, and it's hard to convey what I want to say without sounding rude, but the level of mass ignorance when it comes to like truly understanding even just the big picture in terms of things like, are we under the law? Are we not under the law? Are we under grace? Are we under... It's the disconnect that it seems the average Christian has. So out of 2 million views, there's probably, I don't know, probably 5,000 to 8,000 comments. And I'd say roughly 30% of all comments were saying we are still under Mosaic or Levitical law. And I thought that was wild, because I grasp the concept that I'm more biblically in tune than your average Joe, sure. But no part of me thought that this level of Christianity still existed. Well, that concept was to the level that it's still at, where 30% roughly of Christians still believe they're under Jewish law. It was never Christian law. That's the thing that kind of blows my mind, is this was never a Gentile Christian law. This was a Jewish law. Are you Jewish? No. Okay, then it didn't apply to you. It doesn't apply to you. But if you're not Jewish, it wouldn't have applied to you back then. So if you're not Jewish now, it absolutely, certainly, without any doubt whatsoever, does not apply to you. It really kind of threw me off, to be completely honest. I understand more than most. Anybody who watches me knows that. You know, I understand more than most that we don't have answers to so many things, but we do have answers to a lot of things. And that's definitely something we have answers to. This idea that Christians today should be living strictly under Mosaic Levitical law is wild, for the point that I just said, but for 1,000 other points that you can get to in Scripture. So as I was pondering this over the past couple of weeks, I've been in 1 Corinthians, and I thought this is a really good parallel. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to read through chapter 10 from start to finish, just straight read through it. If you're watching this live, cool. I'm really just recording this. I've got TikTok up in case anybody comes in there. But this is really, I just want to record this. I'm going to throw it up on YouTube, and then I'm going to cut it down and throw it on TikTok and see how people over there respond, because it has been wild. It's been so wild. So let me see if I can get this up right now. Bible. All right. So it's 1 Corinthians, it's chapter 10, and it's going to be all of it, man. So if you're sitting here, you're in for a long one. It's really not that long, though. So warning against idolatry. For I do not want you to be unaware, brothers, that our fathers were all under the cloud, and all passed through the sea, and all were baptized into Moses, and in the cloud, and in the sea. And all ate the same spiritual food, and all drank the same spiritual drink. For they drank from the spiritual rock that followed them, and the rock was Christ. Nevertheless, with most of them God was not pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness. Now, these things took place as examples for us, that we might not desire evil as they did. Do not be idolaters, as some of them were. As it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. We must not indulge in sexual immorality, as some of them did. And 23,000 fell in a single day. We must not put Christ to the test, as some of them did, and were destroyed by the serpents, nor grumble, as some of them did, and were destroyed by the destroyer. Now these things happened to them as an example, but they were written down for our instruction, on whom the end of the ages has come. Therefore, let anyone who thinks that he stands to take heed lest he fall. No temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. That's one that people like to throw out a lot too. No temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. It's thrown out a lot because it's true. And then we move into this next part, and this is where people kind of take it out of whack. God is faithful, and he will not let you be tempted beyond your ability. People will cut that, and then they'll throw that out. That's not the whole verse. That's not the whole verse. God is faithful, and he will not let you be tempted beyond your ability. But with the temptation, he will also provide a way of escape that you may be able to endure it. So people will take this commonly, that God will not give you something more than you can handle. That's not what the verse says. It says, no temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. God is faithful, and he will not let you be tempted beyond your ability. You will get things that you cannot handle. I feel like everybody has felt at some point in life that you could not handle what was happening. Maybe that's just me. I don't think so. I think it's wild that people say that. This is like one of those, it's like the Philippians verse that everybody throws out. It doesn't make sense, and it's not true. It's not biblical. It's not scriptural. You're not going to be tempted beyond your ability. You're going to be tempted to hell. But with the temptation, he will also provide a way of escape that you may be able to endure it. And that is Paul's whole thing, man. Paul is an endurance guy. That's all of the letter to the Philippians is all about endurance. It's endurance, endurance, endurance. Because that dude went through absolute hell to the point that your average American, probably foreigners too, you couldn't even understand. The dude was stoned and left for dead. It's wild. It's absolutely wild. Therefore, my beloved, flee from idolatry. I speak as to sensible people. Judge for yourselves what I say. And that is such a key term, because on this whole TikTok fiasco, I'm so exhausted hearing people say or tell each other what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do, what's permitted, what is not permitted. We're under law, we're not under the law. Paul constantly was saying, judge for yourselves what this all means, because we are a free people now. We are not under Jewish law. We're not under this strict 613 list law. We are free under Christ. You are free. And so Paul's saying, as sensible people, as you are sensible people, judge for yourselves what I say, because there are so many things now with the freedom of Christ that we don't have direction on. We don't have laws. We don't have regulations. It's fair game, but is it really fair game? No, of course not. But it's fair game compared to what the Jews were under. The Jews were under massive, massive weight of laws, impossible laws that were set to be mirrors to show how sick and broken of a society and people that they were. That's not the case for Christianity. That's not been the case the entire New Testament. Anybody who pays attention to Paul speaking and writing, it's so obvious, because he's constantly like double backing on himself, because you can see there's this inner turmoil in Paul trying to figure out what we're supposed to do. What the hell is going on? What is okay? What is not okay? So that's what the rest of this verse is about. And you're going to see I highlighted the hell out of it. The cup of blessings that we bless is not a participation in the blood of Christ. The bread that we break, is it not a participation in the body of Christ? Because there is one bread, we who are many, one body, for we all partake in one bread. Consider the people of Israel. Are not those who eat the sacrifices participants in the altar? Now, getting into the meat of this, in my opinion, what do I imply then? The food offered to idols is anything, or that an idol is anything? It's sarcasm. Paul is saying, so what do I imply then? Is food offered to idols, does that mean anything to us? Does an idol mean anything to us? As a Christian, does an idol mean anything to you? When these other cultures at this time, and even back in the times of Leviticus, the other cultures were giving offerings to idols, but specifically in this Corinthian verse, you basically have this church at Corinth saying, look, there's these people who are going up on the hill, they're sacrificing these animals to idols, they're bringing the dead animals back down here to the market, and then they're selling them. Paul, well, what do we do? Can we eat that? Can we not eat that? It was causing serious problems in the church of Corinth. So this is Paul responding to that. What do I imply then? Does the food offered to idols mean anything? Does an idol mean anything? They're not real. These idols aren't real. The offerings aren't real. So what does it matter? He says, no. I imply that what pagans sacrifice, they offer to demons and not to God. And this is where it gets kind of confusing. I do not want you to be participants with demons. You cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of demons. You cannot partake of the table of the Lord and the table of demons. Shall we provoke the Lord's jealousy? Are we stronger than he? This is where people get caught up because it seems like he's kind of contradicting himself. You cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of demons. He's not saying you can't eat sacrificed meat because it's been sacrificed to idols. He's saying doing those two things at once are not possible. You cannot be an active Christian with the Spirit of God in you and be worshiping demons at the same time. I hope that kind of makes sense. You cannot drink the cup. He's saying they're not possible. It's counterintuitive. If you're a Christian, everything you do is for God. Whether you eat something that was sacrificed or eat something that was not sacrificed, you're eating it for God. You're eating it in the context of a Christian who loves and follows God, who believed that Jesus was God. He's always confusing like this. He's not saying you can't do that. He's saying it's not possible to do that. It's not rational to say that you could do that. Now moving down to 23, titled, Do All to the Glory of God. And this is honestly, in my opinion, where it gets really, really good. All things are lawful, but not all things are helpful. All things are lawful, but not all things build up. Let no one seek his own good, but the good of his neighbor. And remember that, because he's going to go into that again. Eat whatever is sold in the meat market without raising any question on the ground of conscience. So there is a hard point. He's saying, eat whatever. Eat whatever comes in the market. And this was posed off them asking, look, we know it's being sacrificed to idols. Then they bring it down to the market. It mixes in with clean meat. And then we're supposed to buy it. We don't know. We're eating. Was it sacrificed? Was it not sacrificed? Is it okay? Is it not okay? He's saying, eat whatever is sold in the market without raising a question on the ground of conscience. Go for it. For the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. And he's saying what I was just talking about. Everything on the earth is God's. Whether some people who have false idols were taking it and worshiping it to those idols or not, it is all God's. So it's all good to eat. If one of the unbelievers invites you to dinner and you are disposed to go, eat whatever is set before you without raising any question on the ground of conscience. So now he's saying, okay, say you're at a dinner party. Some people invite you over. Unbelievers, specifically, invite you over. And then they bring out meat. You don't know where that meat came from, right? He says, eat it. Eat it without raising a question on the ground of conscience. And this is where it gets confusing because that's Paul's favorite thing. But if someone says to you, this has been offered in sacrifice to idols is the reference, then do not eat it for the sake of the one who informed you and for the sake of conscience. So now he made two references to do not question it on the ground of conscience. And now he's saying for the sake of the one who informed you and for the sake of conscience. I do not mean your conscience, because in Christ you have freedom. In Christ you are whole. In Christ you are new. So it is not your conscience Paul is concerned about, but it is the conscience of the one who informed you. Sorry, give me 1 second. If anyone's actually watching this, this is a recording. I'm trying out some new stuff. And I've got some technical difficulties here, so you're going to have to bear with me. This will all get cut out of the recording, so if you want to bail and watch this later, feel free. There we go. Beautiful. All right. So beginning of this section, do not question on the ground of conscience. Do not question on the ground of conscience. And now he's saying, if someone tells you, they make you aware that they are aware that that meat was sacrificed to idols, he says, do not eat it. Do not eat it. And not for your conscience, but for his, being the unbeliever. Why should my liberty be determined by someone else's conscience? He's asking a rhetorical question now. So he's saying, I know what you guys are going to say based on the conversation we've been having. I know you're going to say, why should what I do be contingent on somebody else's conscience? Why should what I do be contingent on how somebody else feels, what they believe, where they're at in life? And he says, if I partake with thankfulness, why am I denounced? Because of that for which I give thanks. And he's referring back to what he said above. If I'm Christian and I believe what I believe and I'm made new and I'm under God, then you're telling me I can eat meat that's sacrificed to idols, that it's not a big deal. It doesn't matter. It's all God's. I'm whole. I'm new. I'm under Christ. I can eat that. But now you're telling me, Paul, that if somebody who's an unbeliever offers me meat and they verbalize that this was offered to idols, this was offered as a sacrifice to idols, then as a Christian, you are in a place now where you are aware that that unbeliever is aware that that meat was sacrificed to idols, and now you could be potentially causing them to stumble. You're basically setting an example saying to the non-believer, oh, this guy is under Christ, he believes in God, and he doesn't care that this meat was sacrificed to idols. That's odd. And then that unbeliever thinks that that's okay. So Paul's saying you have this ability to have freedom in and of yourself, on your own, in your life, because you know what your intentions are, you know where your heart is, you know what you believe, but you don't know what that dude believes. And so by partaking then, when the guy has made it verbally available to everybody at the table, now you as the outlying Christian, if you then choose to do what everybody else is doing, when in their mind, that could cause them some sort of conundrum, then you are doing something wrong at that point and at that point only. So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do all to the glory of God. Give no offense to Jews or to Greeks or to the church of God, just as I try to please everyone in everything I do, not seeking my own advantage, but that of many, that they may be saved. And so he's saying you have this ministry and evangelical requirement that once you're in the presence of people who do not believe, people who you don't know what their beliefs are, where based on your behavior, your choices, from their perspective, your conscience doesn't matter. You need to be thinking about what that person's conscience is going to take due to your behavior. And I just think that is phenomenal. And this is like kind of, you'll hear about pastors sometimes who they drink alcohol, which is fine, but they won't drink in public. And sometimes those pastors will get called hypocrites. Sometimes they'll get called liars, but this is where that comes from. So there's a lot of ways you can go with it. I personally don't drink because I was really, really good at it for a long time and it caused me a lot of problems. So I don't drink at all ever anymore, but I would do that personally. If I was still drinking, I would do that because you don't know what the people there think. So you have a world of people that may think, oh, well, Christians shouldn't be drinking because, defiling the temple, whatever out of context verse that the non-believers know that they would then throw in your face. That's what they have in their mind. So if you unwittingly confirm those beliefs to them, then you're doing a disservice type of evangelical event. Whereas you could just have some self-control, not drink out in public, and then go and have a drink at home. And that's not required at all. But there's a lot of pastors and Christians who choose to do that because of this literal section right here, because of what Paul is saying. You have absolute freedom. Don't raise any question on the ground of conscience. You have absolute freedom as a Christian. Don't raise any question on the ground of conscience. Oh, but now an unbeliever is watching you. Now you're setting an example. Now they have preconceptions in their head, whether they're right or not. Now you're damaging their ability to come to Christ. And that's the main piece that there is to take out of this. And I just think that's incredible. And I think it's something people miss constantly. North Carolina. Karenita. Man, I can't say your name. Every time I see your comments, I feel really, really bad. I feel really bad. You should record the way you say your name, and you should email or send it to me, because I see your stuff all the time and I always try to sound it out and I always feel like an idiot. Just so you're aware. I see you. Thank you. All right, let me see. Unless anything else pops up to my head, I'm gonna read through a little bit more of this, but I've got TikTok open, I have YouTube open, so if anybody's actually sitting here watching this, just so you know, this is all for a recording. So this will all be posted. If you came in halfway or whatever, it'll all be on YouTube. But anybody who is sitting here, if you have any questions, I'll read on TikTok and I'll read on YouTube as well. Let's see. That's so wild, man. I hope there's other people that just get completely blown away reading the Bible after so many years. It really just throws me for a loop pretty consistently and constantly. All right, cool. Yeah, I got what I need. So I'm going to jump off unless anybody has anything. Oh man, the head coverings. Oh man, the head coverings. I kind of want to read the head coverings now. My in-laws are Episcopal. Drew, I should have got you on here, man. I was trying some different techie stuff, and I was worried doing the Google Meets was going to jack that up. And honestly, I was going to record this at first. The YouTube live was very last minute. The church often bring up the whole Baptist drunk button secret thing. I have a response. Oh, dude, that's funny. That's super funny. In the beginning time, God created heaven, space, and the earth, matter. Boom. Oh man, the science. So the other day I recorded a video about, because I got a message on Instagram of a woman asking, she said, my 8-year-old, I think daughter, but my 8-year-old kid is asking me, how did we all get here if Adam and Eve were the first and only 2 people on the planet? And she's like, if brothers and sisters can't get married, then how did we all get here? And so this lady DMs me and she's like, look, I have no idea what to say to my kid. Can you help? And so I just recorded a video the other day going into all the genealogy, all the different kind of academic views of things like that. But your time, space, and matter just made me think of the scientific arguments, because it's very science based, because you have evolutionists, you have theistic evolutionists, you have the intelligent design people, you have the Adam and Eve literal people, you have the Genesis is poetry people. But it all goes back to these scientific arguments. And I like science, man. I feel like Christians kind of stray away from science because they feel like it invalidates their beliefs, and it's just not true. It's not true. So much of science is just BS, honestly. Science does, obviously, like, that's a very broad statement, and I probably shouldn't have said that. There's a lot of truth to science. But as far as like trying to prove or disprove biblical things, science is trash, because our capability of actually dating things is just, it's god awful. And we're learning all this new stuff. Like, Atlantis probably actually existed. And it was probably actually like a collection of cities that all communicated with each other, which is wild, which is totally wild. Science 100% reflects God's glory. That is 100% true. Look at the Fibonacci sequence. If you don't know anything about the Fibonacci, the mathematic patterns in the world, the symmetry, the congruency, it's wild. It's wild. And then if you take it further, the Fibonacci sequence, the Fibonacci's mathematical equations are actually used in stock trading. So I trade stocks and cryptos and stuff. I'm that guy. So I like day trade, and I trade on leverage and stuff. And you literally can use Fibonacci to know where stocks will go. And it's ridiculously accurate. It's very accurate, but it's an entire method of trading stocks is using Fibonacci, which is math, which is found in nature. It originated in nature. And you're going to tell me that's random. Like, it's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. I'd have to read it again and look at the context, but I have a question. When Jesus came, he said, I did not come to abolish the law. Drew. Yeah, it's a good question. This has come up a lot on TikTok too. Let me see how I want to approach this. And this is one of my big gripes with the New Testament, and one of my big gripes with this whole, the Bible we have is perfect, and it couldn't have anything else that would be helpful, and it's not missing anything that could be helpful. I don't believe that. And I know I'm ostracized because of that and whatever. But if you get into the actual history of the Bible through the editions, the hierarchical systems of the people that put them together, things did get taken out. It's verified. It's verified. And then you have things like the Apocrypha, which much of it, sure, maybe not divine, maybe not inspired, whatever. But massive context. Supreme context. And you have books like Enoch, where Jesus quoted it, Jude quoted it, Paul quoted it. Like, tons of people throughout the Bible quoted Enoch. And then during a council in history, we threw Enoch away. No. And that's not the only reason. Just because they quoted it doesn't make it divine or scripture. But it makes it something you should read, without a doubt. I don't know why I even went on that rant. But he didn't come to abolish the law. He came to fulfill the law. And that's where I think people get really confused and tripped up and kind of thrown off. Jesus didn't come to abolish Mosaic Levitical law. He came to fulfill it. He came to complete it. So Levitical law was basically, and I think I've said this in a video recently, but the law was meant to be a mirror to show Israel how broken, how hopeless, how just absolutely screwed that they were. Octavia, hey, thank you. I appreciate that. If you have suggestions, let me know. But that's what the law was. The law was meant to be a mirror that made the Israelites look at themselves and see how busted and broken they were. And then the whole point of Jesus was what? He was to be the last sacrifice. Just like in the Old Testament, you have all of this animal sacrifice to please God. And then God's like, I'm bored with this. I'm done with this. We don't need to do this anymore. I'm going to give you guys my son. He's going to go as the ultimate sacrifice. And then we can just be done with this. We can be done. We can move on. And so he didn't come to abolish the law. That's absolutely true. He came to fulfill the law. He came to make it whole. He came to completely wipe the law away, not by abolishment, but by fulfillment. And that was his main purpose. That's why this whole thing where Christians get stuck on the law is just bizarre to me. It's totally bizarre, because no part of any of the New Testament is congruent with that. It's not cohesive at all. But I get why they're confused, because you have verses like that. But it's abolish and fulfill are they're two very different terms. He didn't abolish it. Abolish means to just get rid of something. He came to fulfill it, and by fulfilling it, he made it obsolete, essentially. Got to go put the daughter to bed now. It's a school night. It is a school night. Good luck. Tell her good night. Read a good story. I love reading to my daughter every night. That's my favorite thing, literally, out of every day. Adding more ammo to my arsenal. Yeah, that's it, man. That's it. So just replace abolishment with fulfillment, and then, you know, all is good in the world. But if you read through Romans, Galatians, I think even Ephesians touches on it, Paul is like extremely clear that Christians have this newfound freedom. And then he's very careful to, like, he double backs on himself all the time, because he goes on these short rants talking about how Christians are free and we can all now just live and be free, and we're under Christ and we're not oppressed anymore and anything like. But then he's like, but like, there's standards still, guys. There's standards. You still need to be careful. You still need to make sure your brothers and sisters are not falling and stumbling. You still need to, just like what we read in that last one, you know. Don't let it hit your conscience. Don't let it hit your conscience. But if a non-believer XYZ, then don't do it. But when you're alone and you know your heart and you know your intentions and you know the condition of your heart, then you're good to go. You're not hurting anybody. It's same with the tattoo thing. It's same with everything. It's, what's the term, man? Apologia is the Greek term for it, where you have this freedom, but if you're truly under Christ and you truly believe and you really have the Spirit and you're in tune, there will still be things you don't do. There will still be strongholds in your life. It doesn't mean you're living like an unbeliever, but it means you need to be conscious of what's going on around you. The first video I saw was about the Levitical law and the tattoos. That's where most of you guys over on TikTok came from, was the Levitical law thing. Or, I'm sorry, the tattoo video. It's wild. 2 million views on that is wild. The algorithm just took that thing and ran. Are you on a podcast? No, but we're actually putting one together right now. So I think in the beginning, honestly, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to convert all of my YouTube videos. So if you don't have me on YouTube, I would go there, because the stuff I post on TikTok is very short. It's very, very short. On YouTube, I have videos from like 7 years ago, and then I took a 2-year break, and then now I've been back for a couple of months. But long form content is on YouTube, and that's why right now I'm not looking at you. I'm looking over there because YouTube Live is going, and that's a recording that's going to go on YouTube. So if you want to watch longer form stuff or just way more content than I have on TikTok, go to YouTube and definitely find me there. A vocational pastor is just somebody who their career is being a pastor. So their paycheck is signed by the church. So I stopped doing that. Sorry, guys, I'm sick. So I'm sure my voice is gross. But that's a vocational pastor is just a pastor who's on Sunday morning, they're preaching at the pulpit, and their paycheck is signed by that church. So that is their career. That's what they do for a living. I don't do this for a living anymore. I quit being a pastor years ago. Now I manage a construction company. I'm out in the world every day. And I just do this, you know, on my own with my free time and everything like that. Can't tell baby Christians they're totally free or they'll go back. Yeah, exactly. That's why it's so funny, dude. Like, it's so funny when once you're not intimidated reading the Bible, and once you understand enough that you can read it like fluidly and it's not blocky and chunky, reading Paul's epistles is so funny. It's so funny. The level of sarcasm Paul has, the amount of just like hair pulling that Paul does, and then the double backing where he says, because he's so free in Christ and like he's so committed in his heart. And you can tell in his epistles that like he's writing off the context that everybody's like that. And then he realizes at some point during the letter that he's speaking to both very new Christians and very new converts from Judaism and some non-believers. And then you see him double back and be like, but wait, this, and this, and this. We need to be careful. You need to be mindful. You need to, you know, be of sound mind while you're doing this. There are still restrictions. There's still, you need to be on your stuff. It's just so funny, man. I find Paul so funny. He's the greatest guy ever. And then even the what do they call them? The non-permitted letters of Paul, the letters that we assume were Paul, but we're not 100% sure were Paul. They could have been a mentee of his. I feel like you can kind of see some of the difference there. because I do believe that wasn't Paul in some of those letters. And it's just funny to see, like, Paul was just so eccentric, man. He was so funny. But they go totally crazy. New Christians, baby Christians would go totally crazy. And that's how you get things like what the Methodist Church is doing right now, where they throw away everything. And they want to appease society. They want to fit into society. They don't care about keeping to any tradition, and they don't care about causing people to stumble. Once you let, and I'm going to piss people off, but once you let drag queens perform in front of children, I don't care about drag. Adults can do drag. I am all for, do your thing, man. Do whatever makes you feel, whatever. If you're not Christian, you have no stand. Do whatever. I don't care, man. Of all the things that non-believers do, drag is not that bad. Drag becomes bad when you're doing it in front of children, or you're doing it inside of a church in front of children. So my point is, once you let drag queens in a church, literally in skimpy outfits, dancing in front of children, then you as a Christian have gone against everything Paul has ever said. That is the baby Christian completely letting go and totally free, as you said it, Drew, going totally free. And then that causes people to stumble. And then you have this stumbling, tumbling effect where church after church adopts this, and then it becomes normal. And we're experiencing that right now. That's a current reality in our culture. Is Christianity is being watered down to absolute hell. We have LGBTQ preachers, and it's not all LGBTQ stuff. There's Christianity as a whole is just, our culture is dumping water over the faith. They're watering it down to such sad, sad levels. The sermons are pathetic because nobody wants to offend and nobody wants to talk about what's rough. No, they won't even talk about sex before marriage. Like, dude, of all the things going on in society, sure, you don't want to talk about drag queens in other churches. Cool. I get it. But you're not going to talk to your congregation about premarital sex because you think it'll piss off some youth. Like, man, that is a failure of pastoral leadership. That's a failure of Christian leadership. That's really sad. It's really, really sad. Oh, geez, there needs to be a Methodist only flood. Oh, my God. You said it, not me. You said it, not me. That's ruthless. I love it so much, though. I really want to screenshot. I'm totally going to screenshot. That's going to be my phone background, Drew. That's the best thing ever. Hang them milestones, and let them fall off the bridge. Oh, my God. It's truly wild, though, man. It's wild. I sometimes I like to think about, what would Paul write now? Like if say you've got Celebration Church or what is it, Stephen Furtick's church, I don't even know what it's called, or Hillsong or whatever. What would Paul write to Hillsong Church? What would that epistle look like? What would Paul write to the Methodist elder board? Sometimes I like fantasize about Paul just ripping people to shreds. Like, what are you guys doing? Our conversations in early Christianity were, can you eat meat that was sacrificed to idols once it makes its way down to the market? Is it okay? And now we're talking about you have a drag queen up on your church singing in the thong. I feel like you wouldn't even have words. I barely have words. I guess I have a lot of words. But I think Paul would probably be much more careful than me. But part of me thinks he would just completely unload. It's wild, man. The world we're in is wild. This head coverings, I think I'm going to cover this next week. Because this is another one that people just get completely wrong. And I think a lot of women get offended at the head covering thing. And there's no reason to be offended by it. Because it's not what people think. It's not what people think. I think I did a video on this like 5 years ago when I was in my early 20s. Longer than that then. Longer than 5 years ago. But the head covering thing it's crazy. It's crazy. The amount of stuff people just assume based on like one thing they saw or what their pastor told them. I just find that absolutely wild. And then they'll argue about it. I'm like, you didn't do any research. You didn't even read the verse. You just sat in a church on a Sunday and someone you trust told you something. And now you take that as fact. That's not the way to go. That's the wrong way to go. All right. Well, we covered everything. Drew, I think it's just you and 2 other people over there on YouTube. And there's a handful of people over here on TikTok too. If you guys have anything else you want to talk about while I'm here, let me know. We can cover it real quick. Otherwise, I'll get up and get out of here. Man, the YouTube live lag is real. At least in the studio. It's got me still reading the Bible. The pastor can't lie, Joe. It's like Google, it never lies. See you next week. Oh, jeez. You're right, though, man. You're right. The pastor never lies. The pastor never lies. I'll see you next week, man. I'll see if I can't get you on again. I'll have to run some tests and make sure it all works. But if you're interested, I'll pull you in. Hey, Drew, if you're interested to be on next week, it's going to be the head coverings. So I want you to do some research on the head coverings. That's what is it? 1 Corinthians chapter 11. Were we in chapter 11? Let me see. Yeah, it'd be chapter 11. And would it be all of chapter 11? Yeah, it's going to be all of chapter 11. All right, yeah, that's you then. Then we'll get you on here next Sunday. Tentatively 6 o'clock. Maybe this week, man. I don't know. Let's DM me on Instagram. We'll figure it out. I kind of want to test a weekday and see if we get, a better audience or any audience, to be quite honest, But now I'm running TikTok side by side. So I think that, we'll get some crossover. But I need you to read 1 Corinthians 11, all of it. But specifically, the topic that we'll do is the head coverings. Women's placement in the church, and really what Paul is talking about specifically in chapter 11 of 1 Corinthians. So get a little bit read up on that, and we'll do that. We'll do that either this week sometime if we can find time. Otherwise, we'll do Sunday. I guess you got time, right? All right, yeah, sounds good, man. Invite Ruski Mike to go live together. That's my brother-in-law. Why is TikTok suggesting I go live with my brother-in-law? TikTok's wild, man. All right, I'm going to start shutting down. Drew, I'll see you when I see you. I'll message you and we'll get everything figured out for this next one. It should be good, though. The head coverings are good. Have a lovely week if it is till Sunday. But I'm sure, we'll talk in the next day or two. TikTok, I'm going to jump off here. I'm going to shut the YouTube live down. If you guys who are just sitting there listening so politely and quietly, if you guys have any last, what do they call them? Oh my gosh, I'm completely blanking. Burning desires. Burning desires. Is that just an AA term? If you have any burning desires, questions. We covered 1 Corinthians 10, which is a warning against idolatry, and spoke of the meat at the market, and Paul telling Christians they can eat it, and then telling Christians they can't eat it, and then trying to be really clear on why, but doing the Paul thing and kind of stumbling over himself as he does it, which I find very endearing, personally. You guys got like 60 seconds, and I'm going to jump off. Oh, spiritual gifts. We ought to do that the next time. Interesting. What is your opinion about people laying hands, praying for the congregation. I feel like some people should not do that, especially without their permission. I guess give me more context, because yeah, without their permission, I mean, I'm downright against that. I don't feel like you should lay hands on anybody without their permission. But I guess, but then my opinion kind of differs if it's outside of that context. But I don't think you should do that at all if you don't have someone's permission. That seems wild. If somebody just randomly laid hands on me at a church, I mean, like, I personally, because I'm very easygoing, I would allow it to happen. But I would probably pull them aside afterward and be like, what prompted you to do that? And my recommendation would be that you check with somebody before you throw hands on them. Albeit your intentions were probably very good. People have PTSD. You do that to the wrong person, you might get, knocked upside your head. Or you might just offend somebody. Either way, that's a bad look. So, no. But outside of the without their permission context, my opinion might be a little bit different. I have a hard time to be completely transparent with spiritual gifts, with tongues, with laying hands, because I've seen it misused so much. So much. I've seen too much fake stuff. I've seen too much lying. I've seen too much embellishment. I have a really hard time with all that stuff for that reason. Now, granted, I am extremely skeptical, obviously. Anybody who knows me or watches me on YouTube knows that I'm extremely skeptical of most things. But that stuff's all unverifiable. 100% pretty much unverifiable. So it's inherently, I have a hard time with it. But then due to my experiences in many different churches, including Pentecostal churches, I've just had really bad experiences. And I'm conscious of that. I'm conscious that my experiences are playing into my opinion of it. And I'm conscious that that's not always the best thing in the world. But I mean, I've prayed hard on it. I've really spent time on it. I believe spiritual gifts are a thing, obviously. I believe that, oh man, it's tough. It's truly tough. It's truly tough. I have a lot of personal biases with it. Skeptical in nature, just off the bat. I've had the poor experiences. I struggle with it. I believe in it, but I believe it's things like tongues, I guess. I should be more specific. Laying hands and praying for people is beautiful. But things like speaking in tongues and casting out demons and stuff like this, I believe in it. But I don't believe in any way that it's happening to the degree or in the volume that we're seeing it happen today. My personal opinion, and it's going to be a hot take, is that people are capitalizing. Christians, lukewarm or fake or even real but lost Christians, are capitalizing on the state of culture and the world right now. And I believe they're using it for clicks. I believe they're using it to try to increase their head count in church. I believe they're using it for tithes. They're using it for financial gain. So I struggle with it all the more because of that. I believe in it. I truly do. I believe in it. But I believe it's a very, very rare, scarcely seen thing that happens when it's 100% genuine. Again, things like laying hands. I'm sorry, not laying hands. I'm sorry, completely scratch. Things like praying in tongues, speaking in tongues. Things like casting out demons, where somebody is, their eyes are buggy and they're growling at a pastor on a stage, and they lay hands and then throw them back and the demon's gone. I believe in these things. But I feel like any time in culture or in society when the heat gets real hot and there's a lot of end time talk, like right now, there's a lot of, if you do a Google search, you can pull up Google Analytics for search terms. And if you did that for the book of Revelation, you would find that there's a massive uptick in people searching for Revelation. So we're in one of these end time periods, and I'm just seeing a massive bump in Pentecostal laying on hands, casting out demons, stuff like that. It's getting clicks. It's getting clicks. So, is it coincidence that when we have all this talk of end times, and you can go through history and it happens every time. Y2K, it happens every time. 2012, it happens every time. You have these bad actors who are participating and they're capitalizing on the state of the world. They're capitalizing on people's fear. They're capitalizing on people's anxiety. And I hate that. I despise that. It's the antithesis of what Christian is. It's the antithesis of what faith is. It's the antithesis of genuine prayer for somebody. It bothers the absolute hell out of me, to be completely honest. Nancy says, I used to attend this church when the pastor would pray for people at the altar area, but this specific lady walked up to me where I was sitting and she just touched my back. I felt weird. I get that. I get why you feel that way. Something like that honestly wouldn't bother me that much. It would make me feel weird. I would agree with you. It would make me feel weird. But I guess depending on who it was and how they did it and then what they did after, it would kind of dictate how weird I felt and if I said something to them afterward or not. I feel like people mostly have good intentions, man. Drew, Mike's back. Mike's the real guy. Is it Mike or Mikkel? Mikkel, that's what I thought. Man, I turned the resolution down on my monitor and I can't see anything now. And I'm not wearing glasses, so it's like a twofer. God bless you. Keep up the good faith. Love from Uganda. Man, I swear, on TikTok, I have people from America and people from Africa, which I think is really cool. I think that's awesome. But it's like just that. The percentage is very low for the UK or anywhere else. It's just like Africa, US. And I'll take it. That's a demographic I'll take 100% of the time. There's a pastor here that touches everyone standing in front and he prays and they fall. Angie. So Angie on TikTok had a similar experience, Nancy. I mean, kind of. But yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I believe in that, Angie. I believe in that. I believe that that is real. I believe that that happens. I believe that something can happen with that. But I also know for a fact, because of statistics, that, statistics. You can search these things. And during times like now, when Revelation is talked about, when people are searching end times, apocalypse, prepping, stuff like that, when we're in this phase of society where people think they're afraid, they're anxious, they're waiting for something to happen, you see a massive increase in this type of Christianity. And I find that so sad and so alarming, because if that was genuine, the statistic would still go up slightly due to non-believers, due to lukewarm Christians, but the statistic for Christians should not at all move. That chart should be a flat line, because if that's true and if that's real and you're being genuine, you would do it today, just like you would do it 5 years ago, just like you would do it when the stock market crashes, just like you do it when the stock market was really, really far up. It would not be contingent upon culture and upon people's fears. We're preying on people's fears. And I just find it disgusting. It's disgusting. And it's very sad. And then it muddies the water for the real people that are doing this, for the real men and women who have spiritual gifts and who can actually do something like that. It muddies the water and it makes it, one, hard to find them because there's a massive influx in volume, but it also makes people think poorly of it. It makes people doubt that they're real and that they're fakes too. And that's really sad. It's really, really sad. There's an L in there. It just looks like a, yeah, I was able to finally see it. Peer pressure too, though. If everybody else falls, the rest of the folks up front will too, or they'll just sit on a different row. The front row is probably known as the fall down row. Yeah. I mean, and there's something to it too, man. I'll try to find, there was a study that I want to say it was Pew Research that did it, but it might have been somebody else, where they were looking at kind of social contagion and how if you have a room of people and everyone is pushing something. So in the context of what we're talking about, if 10 people raise their hand in worship, so like during the worship music, then more people will feel comfortable to do that. And then more people will feel comfortable. And the more people that do that, the more people feel comfortable to do that. It's this contagious effect. So then if you have all these people who believe certain things, it can be genuine for the people in the crowd, for the congregation, where they feel like they feel it. But it's really it's really just rubbing off from people who might be disingenuous. So the congregation might have real feelings, and they're being genuine, and they're being true, and they're being honest. But the people on the stage, or the worship in the front, and the people laying hands can be disingenuous, and the congregation gives a genuine reaction back, which still means it's fake. It just means the congregation isn't faking. It means the people up front are faking, and they're affecting the people out in the crowd. That's like a real scientific thing, and not, obviously anywhere. It happens at concerts. It happens at riots. It happens at raves. It's a bunch of people together with similar pushes towards a belief is very, very real, and it can become infectious. I find it so hard to find a genuine church. I feel you. That's honestly why I left being a vocational pastor. I honestly feel more connected to God when I'm alone than when I'm at church. Yes, 100%. That's honestly why I started doing this 5 years ago, and why I started doing it again now. Because when I was doing this 5 years ago, doing YouTube and Instagram only at the time, but now with you guys on TikTok, I would say if you guys on TikTok are not following me on YouTube, you need to go to YouTube, because I do much longer form content. And then Drew, who's on YouTube Live right now, he's kind of helping me try to put together a large Bible study. And we're figuring everything out for it, but it would be either on Zoom or on Google Meets, where we all get together on a call. I put it up as a live on YouTube, and then we go over the Bible. And I'll set it up kind of like I did today. So if you missed it, there will be a recording of the live on YouTube. But this started as me reading the Bible and then talking about the Bible. So it'd be kind of like a sermon that moves into a Bible study where you can ask questions and we can talk about how it relates to life. And it's all live, and it's all people are able to speak and be a part of. And if you don't want your face to be shown, then turn off your camera. And if you don't want your voice to be out, then turn off your mic. But you can still type, and I'll have the chat up there. So because you're not alone in that, Angie. There's a lot of people nowadays who feel like they're not comfortable in a church setting. In my opinion, is because we don't have real churches anymore. Saying that very general. There's great churches out there. There's great churches. And honestly, the church that I just started going to, I drive 30 minutes to go to it. But it's actually a decent church. It's decent. Still not great, but decent. But that's why we want to do this, because I want to get enough people together who actually want to learn and who actually want to talk about crap that is hard and talk about the Bible. Because so many churches, they'll give you 2 verses throughout an hour, which is wild. Your job as a pastor is to teach the Bible. Your job as a pastor is then to take what you taught out of the Bible and make it make sense for people in their day-to-day life. They see you once a week, and then they don't see you again till next week. You can't just leave them hanging. And if you leave them hanging with things like questions, so that they want to learn more, and they're searching all week and they're trying to find more. Yeah, open discussion is 100% where you learn the most. Because then as I'm reading, because I know you guys all came in way too late, but I read all through 1 Corinthians 10, 10, the entire chapter. And then I talked about what all of it meant. And then once we start doing this as a live Bible study, after I do that, we'll stop. And then everybody can chime in. One at a time, people can type in. We can all talk about it. And we can even look things up as we're on the live if we don't have an answer for something. But that is how church used to be done. Church was small groups of people genuinely trying to learn and trying to teach each other and trying to better each other, so that as you go out the rest of the week, you're at an elevated point than you were before. And it's not just like this dopamine hit while you're in the church, and then the minute you leave the church, it's back to your daily grind. There should be things you're thinking about throughout the week. And you should be able to connect what you guys talked about on Sunday to your daily life every day. It's the purpose. It's the general purpose of why we do this. I love the idea, open discussion. Oh, I read that. Yeah, I think it'll be great. I think it'll be really good. So we're trying to get it hammered out right now. For the time being, I'm just going to do this. Anybody who's interested in doing this, as a couple of you have said over here on TikTok, send me a DM, reference what we just talked about, and then I'll put you on the list for once we start the Bible study, because we can only have so many people, especially if we want to actually talk. So it'll be, it'll be an exclusive thing, and then I'll do more days if I have to, or, we'll do whatever we have to do at that point. But right now I want to get like 5 to 10 people tops together. And I've got a few already who are interested in doing this. And then we'll all get together and figure out a day, and then we'll get it going. But if it gets big enough and consistent enough, then I'll do this every night. I don't mind doing this every night. This is what I live for. I love this. I love actually talking about this difficult stuff and actually talking about the Bible and what it says, and not giving you some, really cool and fun to listen to illustration for 45 minutes that really doesn't help you in your life and really doesn't teach you about the Bible. That's not my thing. I'm a great storyteller, but it's not my thing. I got absolutely sick of doing that when I was pastoring in a church. I couldn't take it anymore. I would absolutely love to be a part of it. I've been studying hard and would love to join. Send me a DM. Moonchild. Send me a DM. We'll get you in. Drew, we're going to get this rolling, man. We're going to get this rolling. Be prepared, 2 to 4 hour study dialogue streaming. Yeah, I know. I always tell my girl, I'm like, I'll be on 30 minutes. I'll be up. It's been an hour now. And that happens every single time. I feel bad for her, but I feel like she knows by now, I feel like she supports it silently. At least that makes me feel better to think that she supports it silently. If a sermon hurts your feelings, that's good. It means you've realized you're doing something wrong. I like when that happens. Then you can fix it. Me too. Either that you feel bad, you feel shocked, or that you feel like you know nothing. That's my favorite thing, is that when I'm studying, and it's anything, but scripture specifically, when I'm studying and I learn something new that's kind of mind-blowing, it makes me feel like I know nothing. And I love that feeling, because then that just makes me like all the more hungry to figure something out. I love that feeling. God, what's the saying, man? What's the saying? The older I get, the more I realize, the less I know. That's one of my favorite sayings. And I'm not a saying guy. That's one of my favorite sayings. The older I get, the more I realize, the less that I know. Because it's totally true. As the years go on, I've been studying the Bible for so long. And I spent so much time in school studying the Bible. And I went through the Hebrew and went through the Greek. But the more I learn, the more I realize I know nothing. I know absolutely nothing. And the more of these videos I do on YouTube, like the one I haven't posted it yet, but I just posted one about the King James Bible. I think it went up at 5:00, just like deep dive on KJV only, because on TikTok, I get so many people who are saying that they only read the King James version of the Bible, like the 1611 King James. And I'm like, you could not pick a worse Bible. There is not a worse Bible. I mean, there is, but like as far as Bibles that people actually read, there is not a worse Bible. And so I did that one, and I learned some new things as I was preparing for it. I thought I knew enough to sink the ship. And then I read more, and I was like, oh man, this is worse than I thought. And then I recorded one this weekend too. It's not up yet, but it's about the origins of all of us. So Adam and Eve, how we all came from their genetics, that we're basically all coming from incest. That was the question that was given. And so I talk about Adam and Eve, their offspring, because there's several possibilities for what happened. So I give the possibilities. And then you have to consider Noah, because everything got wiped out. So then you have Noah and Noah's family and how they then had offspring. And you still have very close genetics. So with Noah, there's 3 possibilities of what happened. One of them includes a Nephilim, but it all goes very deep. And the more I go into these things, because I try to find something new that I don't already know, and I do, and then I'm like, man, this goes deeper than I thought. I love feeling like I know nothing, because it makes me want to just keep going and going and going and going and going. But yeah, Drew, we're going to get it going, but I seriously got to go now. Otherwise, she's going to be pissed. My lovely girl, she sees very, very little of me between work and me sitting in the basement doing this. So big round of applause for my beautiful, beautiful spouse, who is very tolerant. All right, now burning desires. Any final questions? Otherwise, I'm going to try to do another one of these lives this week sometime in the evening. And then we're Worst case scenario, we'll be on Sunday. I'll have Drew on, and maybe we'll have Moonchild on if she's game. She's gonna send me a DM. We're gonna get that figured out. Socrates got it right, and clearly scriptures express the same. We don't know shit. Yes. I love Socrates, man. I love philosophy. I love it. I'm considering going back to school again. Just cause. I love learning stuff, man. Like, that's just how I'm wired, I guess. It gets me. It gets me. All right. Last questions. I'm jumping off. But anybody interested in doing the Bible study, doing this with us, send me a DM, Instagram, TikTok. That's pretty much it. I mean, I have Facebook too. So if you find my Facebook, everything I have is at Tattoo Theist. Twitter is the same, at Tattoo Theist. Literally anywhere you will find me. But let's get this going, man, because this is real stuff. Let's get some old ecclesia type church going on. Family, go, go, go. Yeah, you're right. I'm going to go. All right, TikTok, have a lovely night. Anybody you want to do this, DM me. We'll get it all set up. And YouTube, good night to you as well. Have a lovely week if I do not see you until then. But go check out the King James video. It's interesting, man. It's very interesting. And then you know what to say when the King James people tell you that the King James is the only real Bible. You can say, oh, yeah, but not at all, actually. I love you guys. Later.